You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tehan. And in addition to this show, I write for the PackersPost.com and Cheesehead TV. Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. July 4th, my friend, we have gotten to the month that training camp opens.
Happy birthday, America, first of
Yes.
all. Happy birthday, America. And, hey, we are getting so close to the start of training camp. And, hey, you're going to have to make some calls to Ticket King, and that's Wisconsin's own The Ticket King. That's who sponsors our show. They got locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. They've been providing Packers tickets to Packer fans for more than 30 years, as well as Bucks tickets, Brewers tickets, Summerfest tickets. But hey, you know what? You ever go to a Brewer game? It's a Brewer Fest. It always is.
It is.
You got beer, you got brats, you got sausage races. It's a Brewer Fest. But you can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. Once again, that's theticketking.com, and you can see the link right there on your screen if you're watching with us on YouTube, following with us on YouTube today. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can watch every episode of No Huddle Radio with Gil and myself on Packers Talk Network on YouTube. Click on that bell, turn the notifications on, join the discussion, chat with us live. Love to see and talk about the comments coming our way. And Gil, today's show, it's, obviously we're still a few weeks from training camp opening up, but really it's time to sit back and think and ponder and really just go over what kind of the biggest questions are there looming over the Packers' heads right now, and for the fans essentially in general, where you and I, obviously, we could talk forever about what direction we think the Packers are going, what we think of the Packers now, what we think needs to improve, what we think is a strength, a weakness, whatever it may be. But there are some polarizing questions, some poignant questions that I feel like we got to get into, Gil. And right away, it's the guy who is under center, obviously. And this is where you sent me a message earlier saying, like, this is a big question of mine. It's a big question of mine as well. And is Jordan Love the guy? He's obviously he's going into year 3 as the starter. The Packers, they feel like he is the guy, given the contract that he was given last summer. And last year maybe took a little bit of a step back from his first year as the starting quarterback. But I'm curious to know what your thoughts are. Do you think Jordan Love is the guy or not?
I think he is. I guess to me, the question is more how much of the guy is he? I think he's established himself as an NFL starting quarterback who's in the top. I think almost everyone would agree the top 15. Most people would say top 10. Fantasy ratings for some reason are a little bit lower for maybe because the Packers ran the ball so much last year. To me, the question is, he's very good. Can he become elite? Or maybe to be even more specific, can he be good enough to get this team to the promised land?
It's just, you knew whoever was eventually going to take over for Aaron Rodgers one day was just going to have enormous pressure, because Brett Favre set a bar so high. And then Aaron Rodgers comes in, and people didn't want Aaron Rodgers to come in. They wanted Brett Favre to stay. And then Aaron Rodgers statistically was better than Brett Favre. He was better than Brett Favre. He exceeded what Brett Favre did, in my opinion, in Green Bay. Now, Brett Favre came in when it was very down times in Green Bay for Packer fans and really just turned around an entire franchise. We've had many discussions about that, and that's history. That's Packer history. But Aaron Rodgers was able to keep it going and still elevated the play, at least at quarterback. And Jordan Love right now is just, his first 2 years statistically have been pretty solid. Obviously, a lot of room for improvement and growth. But that's why I pose this question all the time, where are we going to see because this year could be a really telling time where it's like, okay, like, are the Packers, did the Packers make a wise investment, putting so much future money and future years into a contract for Jordan Love? Or are they going to have buyer's remorse? Because I feel like that could be answered during this upcoming season.
Yeah, it could be. And look, it is not easy. I know after 30 plus years of really high quality quarterback play, Packer fans are kind of spoiled that you think, okay, we have a franchise quarterback and then we have another franchise quarterback. Mm-hmm. They do not come easy. And as somebody who remembers the years after Bart Starr retired and before Brett Favre arrived, guys who started games, and I was just researching a game for an article that I'm working on down the road where the Packers had 1 yard net passing because they were sacked 5 times and had 36 yards passing and 35 yards in sacks. The quarterback starter was 5 for 20. You know, that happened. We lived through that, if you're old enough to have lived through that. So Jordan Love is a very good quarterback, but is he going to be elite? And I think we find out if he stays healthy this year. I think we find out a lot about his potential in 2025.
I think he is a terrific person, and I'm definitely pulling, not just because he's a Packer, not just because he's our quarterback right now, but Jordan Love, the person, you can't help but root for him, and you want what's best for him, just his backstory and everything like that. And he just seems like a really good guy when it comes to meeting with the fans and just a lot of people. You know, I think just an example, I saw a video, I think last summer, where he signed some stuff for a kid, and mom was just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how nice you are." You know, he's just like, "Oh no," yeah, and he was like, "No, this is no problem." You know, it's like, this is, and he's a guy who just kind of gets it. He's definitely embraced it and embraced being a Packer and everything like that. But obviously, a big thing too is, and Matt LaFleur's talking about, where we got to see him step up as a leader too.
Yes.
I know Aaron Rodgers got a lot of flack for having bad body language or, swearing off and cussing off coaches and everything like that. But guess what? All the great quarterbacks do that. Tom Brady, how many clips have you seen of him cussing out his coaches? Patrick Mahomes, too, a few years ago, cussing out his coaches. Peyton Manning, a guy on the roster who was a guy in training camp who was a roster hopeful, wide receiver. If he didn't run the right route or didn't drop a pass or didn't catch a pass, Peyton Manning wouldn't look at them. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to have some intensity. So I think that's the next step, honestly, for Jordan Love is taking that step as a leader and not being afraid to ruffle feathers for the betterment of the team. So that's kind of the next step I want to see too.
And that's a confidence thing. That's a confidence in your ability to lead, that guys will listen to you, that you are the guy running this offense. And hopefully we see that this year.
And I do want to say real quick, congratulations to Jordan Love and his beautiful bride, Ronica Stone, a great volleyball player. My wife loves to follow her on Instagram. They got married this past weekend. So, hey, maybe he'll have that husband strength, and then if he becomes a dad one day, he'll have that dad strength and he'll take his game to another level, but only time will tell. Now, Gil, the next question that comes up, and this is because more recent developments that happened, specifically with the post-June 1 cut of Jair Alexander. And the Packers got Nate Hobbs from the Vegas Raiders in free agency back in March. And you thought maybe okay, he's going to be a boost, if anything, to this unit with or without Jair Alexander. But the Packers didn't add really to the cornerback room. They had a 7th-round pick of Micah Robinson in the draft in April. So the big question here, probably the next biggest question going into the season and training camp, is this Packers cornerback group good enough?
I think they're okay. But I'm concerned about depth. I think if everybody stays healthy for most of the year, the top 3 or 4 guys they have will be, I'm not saying Pro Bowl or all pro, but they'll be good enough. Mm-hmm. But if somebody goes down, you're bringing in an untested player to probably play a big role, and that has me nervous.
The big thing is, because I think, honestly, in the slot, having slot corners, they're actually, or guys guarding the slot, I feel like they're in good shape because Javon Bullard played so much there last year where he could be a guy that you could put in the slot if need be. Nate Hobbs can play in the slot. Keyshawn Nixon, in an emergency, can play in the slot. But it's just the outside corners where I feel like with Carrington Valentine and Keyshawn Nixon, those are your starting outside corners. And Nate Hobbs could slide out there if need be, but there's not a lot of depth on the outside. That's the big thing that I'm worried about. But we've heard rave reviews over from minicamp with Kamal Hadden and with Kalen King. Kalen King was projected to be a 1st-round pick out of Penn State a couple of years ago, and then he slid all the way to the 10th to last pick in the NFL draft in 2024, and he took essentially a redshirt year on the Packers practice squad in 2024. Maybe he plays, maybe just having that year of being in an NFL locker room, being with an NFL team, and just kind of developing behind the scenes. Maybe that's going to do wonders for him in 2025, maybe much to what Brenton Cox Jr. could be going forward, where he essentially took a redshirt year his rookie year, but he was on the active roster. So that's the big question. I agree with you, where it's like I think the slot corner depth is not bad right now for the Packers, but that outside corner depth definitely worries me.
Yeah, it does. And to me, the big issue is I don't know if Keyshawn Nixon is replaceable this year if he goes down. I just think there's a big dip if he is lost. And, when he said at the end of last year, hey, I'm going to be cornerback 1 and I don't have to return kicks anymore, everyone focused on the I don't have to return kicks anymore. And I said to myself, whoa, I don't know if he's ready to be cornerback 1. As of right now, he's CB1.
Yeah, and guess what? This guy, he did his job last year. I felt like he definitely improved as a defensive back last season. And he's a corner who's not afraid to come up and hit someone. And yeah, he's a little undersized, but like Mark Murphy said shortly after the Jair release was, Keyshawn Nixon's a tremendous story. And if his play elevates, because I feel like it could, I feel like Keyshawn Nixon still has room to grow and improve. You have a number 1 corner for pennies on the dollar for what number 1 corners are going for. So you just got to hope for that. I do think Nate Hobbs will be a nice addition. Obviously, the injuries that he had in Vegas are a bit of concern, but yeah, name of the game is health, Gil. I'm with you 100%. And speaking of former Vegas Raiders, let's talk about another former Vegas Raider who's going into his second year with the Green Bay Packers. That's running back Josh Jacobs, who had a tremendous 2024 season. He replaces Aaron Jones, a guy who was so well beloved by the fans, the coaches, teammates. Obviously a tough decision by the Packers to let a guy like that walk out the door. But then Josh Jacobs comes in and he scores 16 touchdowns. He rushes for more than 1,300 yards, easily the best player on offense a season ago, and just actually helped improve the offensive unit in 2024, or the running back room in 2024. But the last time he had a big season like 2024, the following year, he had nagging injuries in Vegas, and he didn't even reach 1,000 rushing yards. That was earlier in his career. So, Gil, the big question is, can Josh Jacobs repeat his 2024 in 2025? Because historically, it says no, but I don't know. I feel like this guy's kind of built different, and he's in the right scheme to be able to excel again in 2025.
I think he is in the right scheme. Look, here's the thing about Josh Jacobs. I don't think he needs to repeat. I don't think he needs to be as good this year as he was last year if Jordan Love stays healthy.
Yep.
I think we could take 85% of what Josh Jacobs did production-wise and be absolutely fine. And the depth at running back, I am really high on. You've got Emmanuel Wilson, you've got Chris Brooks, and then the wild card is Marshawn Lloyd, who we don't know what he brings to the table. But, Jacobs, I think he has to be good again, but he doesn't have to be one of the top 3 or 4 running backs in the league like he was a year ago.
I'm with you. Just be effective when you're out there. And I really hope the Packers don't lean on him as heavily in 2025. Now, in 2024, they kind of had to, like you said, with the Jordan Love injury and the struggles at wide receiver. And Josh Jacobs was great. I mean, the playoff game against Philly was an offensive disaster, except for Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs actually brought it. He played like he gave a crap, and he played well. And that's what you kind of expect from a guy like that. He's a total gamer. And the way I see it too with Josh Jacobs, where it's like, you ask this guy to put a little more on his plate than he's used to, and he has no problems going out there and doing it. The Colts game in week 2 last year with Malik Willis starting, and they ran through Josh Jacobs all day. And he was just like, all right, let's do it. It's like, I'm getting paid to carry the ball, and I'm getting paid to be an effective runner for the Packers. And he was extremely effective last year. I just hope that Marshawn Lloyd, if he is as good as what we're hoping to be, and if Emmanuel Wilson improves the way he has from years 1 to 2, and if Chris Brooks can just be that steady presence, if he's on the team or not, we don't know yet. We don't know if the Packers are going to keep 4 running backs. If they do keep 4 running backs, don't be surprised. But Chris Brooks, he may be the first man out, and it may not be his fault. But if the Packers running back room is as talented as we think it is, Josh Jacobs won't have a similar statistical 2024 season, but he could be way more effective in 2025, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And I'm going to just say one more thing. I would like to see him be a little more involved in the passing game as a receiver next year.
Oh yeah, you get him in space, he's super effective, but he's such a great power runner, and I love that too. That's just a different element of his game that he brings compared to Aaron Jones, where you can give that guy the ball in 4th and 1 and he's probably going to get it. And Aaron Jones, I loved Aaron Jones. I think he was a very tough runner, but I don't think he just wasn't thick like Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs he's just a thicker dude. And yeah, I'm with you. If he can get the ball a little more in the pass game, that'd be great. I mean, he had his first receiving touchdown of his career.
Finally.
Last season, and you thought it was time, but yeah, and I feel like too another thing that goes hand in hand too, where we were talking about Jordan Love, where his effectiveness, Josh Jacobs' effectiveness, it definitely, if Jordan Love's healthy and he's slinging the ball, and this offense, the passing game plays a lot better than they did at the end of last year, this offense is gonna be pretty tough to hold down if you're an opposing defense.
No question, and I'm looking forward to it. There are a lot of weapons here. One or two of them need to step up and get more consistent. But I really like on paper what we've got.
And going back to the defense, we're going to finish up with a couple questions on the offense in a bit. But back on the defense, though, now the cornerback room, obviously, big question mark. We already addressed that. But then another area that wasn't addressed in free agency nor the draft this year was the Packers pass rush. And even though they were top 10 in sacks a year ago and a top 10 defense, this team consistently way too often just could not get home with 4. And it led to way too many times. I mean, that playoff game alone where Jalen Hurts had 5-6 seconds to throw, where I don't care who your corners are. There's no defensive secondary football that can hold coverage for 5 seconds. You just can't do that. And the big thing is the pass rush. And we know what Rashawn Gary brings. I feel like a lot of opposing offenses have shifted so much of their pass protections towards him because he's the number one threat, and they should, because I think he's a good player. But it's just a matter of getting the guy on the other side to excel. And the big thing is Lucas Van Ness, the 2023 first-round pick by the Packers. And he had his rookie year, he had some flashes here and there. It's like, okay, there's something there. And then last year, he took a major step back. There's no other way to sugarcoat it. He took a major step back. He's going into year 3. It's a very, very pivotal, important year coming up for Lucas Van Ness. And that's a big question going into 2025 is Lucas Van Ness, is he going to rise or is he going to flounder? Because right now it's up to him.
And they need him. They do need him to step up and live up to the promise that he has, the athletic ability. The kid is named Hercules for a reason. Show me Hercules, I mean, that's really what Packer fans are saying. And I get the injury last year. The broken thumb limited his use of his hands, which is important for a defensive lineman. But here you are in year 3. Show me why you were one of the top 13 players off the board in your draft year. Show me why the Packers made a good decision to take you in 2023.
I will say this with Van Ness, I think he's got all the tools to be really good. I think he's a superb athlete. He could be a really good edge defender against the run game. We've seen his speed, his closing speed, when he does get to quarterbacks or when he gets near running backs, and his length and his reach and everything like that. He's got all the athletic traits, but we'll see. Has he developed a counter move? He can't just bull rush guys in the NFL.
Right.
You can't do that. You got to have multiple moves to be able to get to the quarterback. And I feel like the time is now to put it together, because it has to be. It's not necessarily because I don't think it should be, but it has to be the time right now. And week 1 of the season, when the Packers open up the regular season, it's going to be very interesting to see what that starting lineup is on defense. Rashawn Gary's going to be starting at one side of the defense at defensive end. Who's going to be the other guy? Because guess what? If it's not Lucas Van Ness, that shows you that he didn't have a good camp, and that shows you that the Packers don't feel too great about him moving forward. That week 1's going to be, unless he has an injury,
right?
But the first game he's available for, if he is not starting, that's going to be a big red flag, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he did a better job against the run last year. He certainly stepped up that aspect of his game.
Everyone did.
I was about to say most of the players on the team did, and I think I give Jeff Hafley some of that credit. But now it's time to get that pass rush on. It is time for him to shine. And here's a kid, partially not his fault, but he hasn't started a game since high school. And It's time. Step up. I thought he was going to take the starting job after they traded Preston Smith, and he did not. Kingsley Enagbare did. Whether the thumb injury was part of the reason for that or not, no more excuses. Go show me what you can do.
If Van Ness isn't the starter in week 1 at defensive end, do you think that starter is Kingsley Enagbare, or could Brenton Cox Jr. take that spot?
Whoever has the better camp.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think Brenton Cox Jr., I think this is a guy who, he was a former 5-star recruit, and he had some character concerns in college and then he transferred from Georgia to Florida, and he didn't get drafted because there were some red flags character-wise, but you saw in the little bit that he played when he was activated for actual games last year, what kind of impact he can make. This kid could be pretty good. He could be pretty good. He definitely has the tools to be good. There were some things, obviously, where opposing offenses definitely exposed him at times for just kind of being undisciplined and trying to make a play and just really just blowing your assignment. But Brenton Cox Jr. is a guy where it's like, you never know. It's like he outplays Lucas Van Ness in the preseason. It's like, oh boy, it's like the way I see that though, where it's like, all right, if he outplays Lucas Van Ness, and let's say he gets a starting job over Lucas Van Ness, well, at least the Packers got a stud defensive end in that draft. It wasn't in round 1 or like from that draft class, from that rookie class. So it's like better one than none, right?
Look, 3 years down the road, it doesn't matter where you were drafted or if you were drafted. It's who's playing the best football. Guys who are drafted in the first round, second round, they're going to get more chances to show what they can do. But if you survive as an undrafted free agent and you go into year 2, year 3, and you're balling out in the practice field, you can win the job. And Brenton Cox showed some nice flashes down the stretch last year.
You wonder, too, if the Packers, if they don't feel great about defensive end outside of Gary, if they go find a free agent who's still available or make a trade. I'm not saying they're going to do it for Trey Hendrickson, but it's maybe worth having a conversation given the Cincinnati Bengals call. Now, we're going to wrap up with the offense with a couple questions. And obviously, the big flashy draft pick, Matthew Golden. He was the first wide receiver picked in 23 years in the first round by the Green Bay Packers. They also added Savion Williams, a wide receiver out of TCU in round 3, a big guy who has a lot of Cordero Patterson, Deebo Samuel traits, who could run out of the backfield, could play at receiver. And now it's that wide receiver room. It's going to be an interesting competition. Jayden Reed's been the number 1 guy his first 2 years in the league. Romeo Doubs has been up there too. Christian Watson obviously is going to miss some time because he's recovering from an ACL tear. Dontavian Wicks, I feel like, has so much talent, just hasn't really reached it. And then Bo Melton and Malik Heath are still there too. So, Gil, a big question going into camp, on my opinion, is what's the pecking order going to be at wide receiver? Because I think a lot of fans are really intrigued to see like who's going to get the most looks, who's going to be the number 1 guy, and then who's going to follow after that. Because right now it's totally up in the air.
It is up in the air, and I'm not concerned about that. I don't know how much we get from Golden right away. Hopefully by the second half of the year, he's contributing more. But, so many of these guys, you see the talent in Dontavian Wicks. Led the team in targets, but was 4th or 5th on the team in catches. Mm-hmm. He's got to be more consistent. Romeo Doubs uncharacteristically dropped a lot of passes last year. Mm-hmm. All of these things need to be cleaned up, but there's a lot of potential in that wide receiver room, but no gimmies. Nothing is certain. And the hope is at least one guy becomes more of a certainty by the time the season gets underway.
Just one guy just to pull a defense their way. You know what I mean? Just that's all they really needed. I still think Jayden Reed is the number 1 guy for now, but I want to see how Matthew Golden looks in the preseason. I'm really excited to see him because the coaches have been raving about his speed, his ability to, his agility in and out of cuts and everything like that. Obviously was a tremendous player for the Texas Longhorns last year. And, Texas was a game away from playing for a national title. Just a good player and seems to already have a good connection with Jordan Love just from mini camp, but we'll really get to see more in training camp. And just again, it's like seeing that starting lineup graphic on during the first game of the season when the Packers open up it's going to be very interesting to see who's going to be the starting wide receivers listed on TV moving forward.
Yeah, and then will the starting receivers in week 8 or week 12 be the same as the starting receivers in week 1?
The NFL's ever evolving. It's nothing ever stays status quo. Nothing ever stays stable. You can't operate that way, really. But
not for long, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, it's not going to matter though who the wide receivers are if Jordan Love can't get the football to those guys. And for Jordan Love to get the football to those guys, well, the offensive line has got to be in good shape. And obviously, the Packers lost their starting center, Josh Myers. They didn't bring him back after last season. He's with the New York Jets now. They signed Aaron Banks at free agency to play left guard. It seems like Elton Jenkins is moving over to center, but you also have a guy like Jordan Morgan, who was drafted with their first-round pick in 2024, and he's supposedly going to compete for the left tackle job with Rasheed Walker. He was competing with Sean Ryan for the right guard job last year in camp, but then he was dealing with shoulder issues. That's what ended his season eventually. They draft Anthony Belton, Escalade, out of NC State in round 2. There's a little more depth on that offensive line and some more question marks. You can probably assume Elton Jenkins is your starting center, Aaron Banks is your starting left guard, and Zach Tom is your starting right tackle. Outside of that, though, the big question going into camp on the offensive line, how is the number one offensive line going to stack from left to right?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And, I think the Packers want Rasheed Walker to not have that starting job. They want Jordan Morgan to step in.
Agree. Yeah.
Whether he's ready to do it or not remains an open-ended question. I like Rasheed Walker. I really like the way he's handled himself. Is he a Pro Bowler? No. Is he a solid starting left tackle in this league? Yes. Does he deserve to start somewhere? Yes. But will it be in Green Bay? We don't know. I have a weird feeling, and I hope I'm wrong, that injuries will go a long way toward figuring out who ends up starting where. The Packers were so fortunate last year. I mean, I think only one starter missed a game, and that was Josh Myers, and that's when they moved. That's the one game that Jordan Morgan started because they had to move Elton Jenkins to center, and it didn't work out particularly well for that one game. Now he'll have a lot of reps in training camp, assuming they figure out his contract situation. I think you really have 3 spots settled and 2 spots up for grabs, and you want to get that settled early because cohesion in the offensive line is critical.
You saw in the playoff game, too, when Elton Jenkins left the game with a stinger early on, how much that offensive line crumbled. I think they were a very good starting offensive line last year, but you could tell where it's like the depth wasn't very good. And I'll give Brian Gutekunst credit where he clearly made points like, yep, we're going to add to this group because we got a good starting 5, but we need more. We need more because though you can never have enough good offensive linemen in the NFL. You really can't. And I'm with you though, Gil, from a business perspective. I think that's why the Packers want Jordan Morgan to win that left tackle job because they got a lot of pending free agents coming up. Zach Tom is going to demand big money, which he should. Romeo Doubs is a pending free agent. Don't know if he's going to be back. Christian Watson, pending free agent. Don't know if he's going to be back. Quay Walker, he's a pending free agent after the year. Don't know if they get him back. Devontae Wyatt, they probably want to extend him. Who knows what happens there? There's a lot of contracts, a lot of important contracts coming up and a lot of big money decisions that they're going to have to make. And if you have Jordan Morgan at left tackle, who's going to be a lot cheaper probably than Rasheed Walker after this season, makes life a little easier for Russ Ball and Brian Gutekunst and company in the front office.
No question. No question. I feel bad if that happens to Rasheed Walker, but, he'll start the season as the swing tackle if he doesn't win the job, and then he'll go. Believe me, there will be a market for him because there are plenty of teams that he would start for.
And Sean Ryan, I think he will be the starting right guard for sure. I think Anthony Belton is more going to be a developmental guy as a rookie. And, you never know. He may fill in. He may get some snaps, some important snaps on offense. You never know. But I feel like this is it's a John Runyon situation from a couple of years ago when he was essentially platooning with Sean Ryan, and then they let John Runyon Jr. walk. Sean Ryan took over a right guard. I feel like this is what's going to happen where Sean Ryan's going to probably get a good paycheck to play elsewhere after this season. And I hope he stays in Green Bay from Sean to Sean. That's just my opinion. But I feel like Anthony Belton, they drafted him and be like, yep, you're going to be our starting right guard in 2026. And that's kind of seems to be the plan moving forward. But you just hope that Anthony Belton and Jordan Morgan aren't total flops, because then guess what? There's going to be a lot of money being pumped in that offensive line, a lot more than they want to pump into that offensive line.
Yeah, and I still think it's possible if Jordan Morgan doesn't win the left tackle job that he does compete again at right guard. So that's a, Sean Ryan, it's got to be the hair, right?
Oh yeah. Me growing my hair out, not a good idea. I can't get that flow like that. It's like, but Sean Ryan, he's got the best hair on the team for sure. I don't think anyone comes close to.
Not even Matt LaFleur.
No, Matt LaFleur. I got more of a Matt LaFleur look though. You do too, with the short crew cut and everything like that.
But I don't have the eyebrows.
Matt LaFleur's got the best eyebrows.
Yes, I don't have the eyebrows like
that. I got those Italian eyebrows, man. They're thick and long and everything. Yeah, I got the Italian eyebrows. But we're wrapping up though now, Gil. Obviously, it's the calm before the storm. Training camp's going to be here before you know it, and Ed Policy's going to be taking over as president and CEO of the Packers, and then all of a sudden we're marching towards a new season and prepping for a new season. But for right now, Gil, we got America's birthday coming up. What articles you got coming up on a Packers Post and Cheesehead TV?
Well, I did talk a little bit about Sean Ryan's situation over at the Packers Post. Also did a little feature on Tehan Oladapo, who people are kind of forgetting, but he could find a way to contribute. And over on Cheesehead TV, talked about ways that the Packers could and reasons that the number of drops could fall, hopefully, this season for the Packers receiving core.
I hope it does, because guess what? If it does, this offense sky's the absolute limit. Tehan Oladapo, remember, that guy was one of the better prospects, but just injuries have been an issue for him from the end of his college days to the beginning of his pro days with the Packers. So it's interesting. Tune into Gil's stuff. Go read Gil's stuff, Packers Post and Cheesehead TV. Gil, you ready for some trivia?
I am ready for some trivia.
So right now, this is NBA offseason. This is a big time in the NBA and the NHL offseason. But we had an NBA-related question last week, and we're going to do it again this week, Gil. I'm sorry. Wisconsin's own Milwaukee Bucks made quite the splash in free agency on Tuesday. They signed former Indiana Pacer Miles Turner to a big contract, but in order for the Bucks to sign Turner, they had to waive All-Star guard Damian Lillard, and the Bucks are going to be paying Lillard $22.5 million over the next 5 years to not play for the Bucks. So,
I'll do it for half.
Oh yeah. It's like not bad money, right? Like I wish I was getting paid even less than I could be getting paid less than that for the next 5 years not to work, but. Gil, getting back to the NFL, and this is all going to come full circle. The Packers are paying 3 players to not play for the team in 2025. Name these players.
One, I think, would be David Bakhtiari.
Nope, his contracts are done. Nope.
Done. Okay. Wow. 3.
The guy we just cut recently.
Well, okay, Jair. Yeah, that's the easy. That's the easy one. We traded Preston Smith, so that's not a consideration.
No.
Gosh. Are we still paying Aaron Jones?
No. This is kind of tough. It's kind of tough to sift through the weeds, but you have any more guesses?
No, I'm going to stop there.
Okay, you were on the right track. So Jair Alexander is one. Preston Smith is one. They are still paying him a little bit of money this year. There is still a dead cap hit for 2025. It's weird. I verified it. It's true. And then Devondre Campbell, because he was a post-June 1 cut last year, they're still paying him money this year. They break that up into 2 years.
Yep.
So obviously, it's a little bit complicated, but of course, Alexander, that was a slam dunk. He was just released a few weeks ago, and now he's a Baltimore Raven. And the Packers, when they traded Preston Smith to Pittsburgh, the NFL trade deadline last season, they still had some money that they had to owe him for this year, some dead money. And then Campbell, again, post-June 1 cut by the Packers in 2024, signed with the 49ers shortly thereafter. Probably his NFL career is probably over after he just quit on his team on that primetime game late last season. Now, quarterback Sean Clifford actually technically is receiving minimal dead cap hit as well, but Clifford is still technically with the Packers, so that's why I didn't include him in this. And the Packers in total, they're paying just under $35.5 million in dead cap money to Jair, Preston, and Campbell in 2025. So, there you go. That's the business of the NFL right there, Gil, where you think you're out of the weeds with paying guys, and You're not. But luckily, they're not stretching any contracts for 5 years like the Bucks will be with Damian Lillard and paying him $22+ million a year. Heck, I would take 1% of that.
That's right.
A year.
To not play.
What's 1% of that? That's carry the zero, move the decimal point. That's like $200,000 a year, right?
$200,000, yeah.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah, sign me up. Like
sign me up to not play for it. Yeah. That's like the best deal. The best deal in sports, though, Bobby Bonilla, who the New York Mets pay like $1.2 million every year through like 2035 for not playing for them.
And Bobby Bonilla Day was just a few days ago, July 1st.
Yes, it was. July 1st is Bobby Bonilla Day.
It's funny, though, because it's like Ryan Braun from the Brewers. He's still getting paid about $1.8, $1.9 million a year, and he gets paid through like early 2030s. And he's getting more money per year in deferred money than Bobby Bonilla, but Bobby Bonilla's contract's like 30 years.
Forever.
It's like 30 years of deferred payment. So it's pretty freaking crazy. But I'll tell you this, though. I think the best job to have is a fired Division I football coach. I remember, if you remember LSU's head coach, Ed Orgeron, he was the head coach of the last national champion at LSU. And when they bought us contract, he told a story on a podcast saying, we're like, hey, we're going to fire you, but we're going to pay you $22 million to buy your contract. And Ed Orgeron is like, where do I sign? You know what I mean? It's like, hey, that's the best job, Gil. That's all we got to do. That's how we're going to make money. We're going to schmooze our way to the top, be Division I football coaches and get fired immediately. We're set for life.
There you go. There you go. If only, right? If only.
We got to find someone dumb enough to hire us first. So it's like, that's like, it's gonna be a process.
Put it that way, that's not a good start, Sean.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to work. I'm gonna get to work on it. Don't worry. Keep your friends close, your enemies closer. Am I right?
There you go. All right. Well, that's gonna do it for today. We'll be right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter at Bill Packers, at Packers on all things Packers, or to ask us questions, or you can email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. A big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show, and thank you for listening. Until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.